Hello, and welcome to week 5. Just want to make sure I'm not on mute. Week 5 of Wednesday of week 5 for the Summer Series 2.0 in partnership with H&H. It's a big day today. It's the last day that I'll have to do the technology. Our colleague Stefan returns from a 10-day break from Cornwall, well deserved. So looking forward to having you back, Stefan, when you watch this on demand. And it's my 40th birthday tomorrow. So I'm going through all types of weird thought processes right now, while still stuck in a bedroom, waiting for lockdown to really fully end. Really excited for this talk today. Finalist in the current EMEA 2021 Inspiring Workplaces Awards. Also, the content will relate to some of my family background, being in journalism as well. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome Alya Lilani to the Summer Series. Hello.
Hi, Matt. Thank you so much, and happy early birthday for tomorrow.
Yeah, it's been, people have been reminding me about this. I was the youngest in my year, so all my peers and friends have been turning 40 all year. So I felt 40 for a while already, sadly. So there you go.
You can choose from which celebration you want to the end and make the best one.
Yeah. I know, I can't wait, but I really can. Another year maybe. So like I say, you're the star of the show today, and we really want to get cracking and hear your story. So I think there's a video, is there? Maybe we have to listen to?
Yeah, absolutely. Just before we get into that, I'll quickly introduce myself. So thanks for the introduction, Matt. But so my name is Alya. I've worked at News UK for 4 years, starting in the learning and development team from inducting new starters to becoming MBTI accredited, and more recently in 2019 becoming involved with establishing our internal diversity networks alongside doing some employee engagement and culture, which has led to my current role, which focuses on driving diversity into our wider leadership and building a culture of inclusion where everyone is heard, valued, and feels like they belong. And for those of you who are unaware, News UK is a media organisation which encompasses the Times, the Sunday Times, the Sun, Wireless. And we launched our first diversity and inclusion strategy last October, and it really has been the front and centre of our business agenda for the past year. And I'm going to talk you through that in a moment, but let me first show you a video documenting the great work that we've done since launching our strategy. Brilliant. So as you can see, a lot has happened in the last year alone. So let's take it back to the beginning and reflect on how and why we got to where we are. It's no secret that the media industry has a problem with a lack of diversity. We've seen the recent reports and the pushback when came in light the Society of Editors claiming the media industry is not institutionally racist. Representation is an issue for the entire media landscape, and News UK is no different to that. 3 years ago at a News Union conference, Rebecca Brooks, our CEO, was asked what her exec and the company were doing to attract and recruit more ethnic minorities. Unfortunately, the answer at the time was good question, and unfortunately, not a lot. So the result, we formed a diversity board. Our diversity board is made up of representatives from across the organization and all of our brands. So including human resources, our chief commercial officer, wireless, the Times, the Sunday Times, the Sun, and other departments that fall under the corporate sector. When we formed, it became very clear that we needed to understand our diversity statistics before we could actually create a strategy. At this point, all we had access to was gender and nationality, as these were required by law, but it didn't tell us anything about ethnicity, about sexuality, or about background. Therefore, it was clear that we needed to do a survey and ask our employees for this information. It has taken us a couple attempts to get to our completion rate, which is now in the 80s, which is amazing. And we are asking all new starters for this information, which is also voluntary. As a business, we now know we very clearly have work to do. We're about 10% ethnically diverse compared to the 11% of the census in 2011, and 38% female compared to 51% in the UK. So to tackle our situation, we identified several issues that we needed to address. The first, barriers to entry. Insight showed us there were two main problems in attracting diverse talent: a lack of interest in journalism or media careers, and a lack of structured work experience. The second, barriers to progression. There was no infrastructure in place to address and harness the difference of our diverse talent, or focus on retaining and nurturing them to enhance our collective potential. And third, barriers to inclusive products. By 2031, ethnic minorities are predicted to make up 30% of the population, and we know that 19% of working age adults are disabled. The stats that I previously mentioned, you can see we're already not representing the diverse makeup of our population in our content output. So our new strategy was launched by News UK's Diversity Board in 2020, in October 2020, informed by Creative Equals, who are leaders in the diversity and inclusion space, and with the results from our surveys. We've set targets of having 50-50 gender parity and 20% ethnic minority representation at all levels of the business, and the strategy is focused on three priority pillars. The first, attracting, developing, and retaining young talent from a much broader pool. News UK has pledged to advertise all roles through diversity recruitment specialists. We've established more than a dozen partnerships with diversity recruitment specialists to ensure that we're looking further than we ever have for any role. We've made a £2 million investment into creating apprenticeships, internships, and work experience across all departments for the next 12 months. We're the first media organisation to partner with Kickstart to create up to 100 paid placements for unemployed young people in 2021. And we're recruiting from across the country, from Yorkshire to the West Midlands. And we'll launch 45 two-year-long apprenticeships. The second pillar, diversity and leadership, looks at driving gender and ethnic diversity into our wider leadership. We partnered with Creative Equals to offer a multicultural leadership development program to create a more diverse pipeline to leadership. We're supporting our employee-led networks within the organisation, including our Cultural Diversity Network, a voice for Black, Asian, ethnic minority employees, News is Out, our LGBTQ+ network, Gen Z, I could go on. We launched a diversity and inclusion development program, which features sessions on unconscious bias, building inclusive teams, and allyship to drive awareness and inclusivity at all levels, and created a system to track all instances of discrimination and regularly review this to identify any patterns or issues. The third pillar, inclusive products, ensures that diversity and inclusivity is in the journalism and the content that we produce. So we created diversity action groups within each brand across our business to consult on everything from sensitive issues for minority communities to making our teams more inclusive and producing more diverse content. We created and tailored and specific training for journalists for reporting on ethnic communities. Currently, training for all newsroom staff is happening across all of our titles. We're looking to introduce a diversity style guide for the business, which is giving advice on correct terminology and language to use around marginalized communities. And we launched Studio Pi, which is a new photography and illustration agency promoting diverse and underrepresented talent, and it's thriving. It's doing really well. We have clients such as Calvin Klein, Volvo, the list is endless. So let's talk about the second pillar, because that's the one that I look after, diversity and leadership. Diversity and leadership is a key pillar because we know from our engagement survey, we know from feedback from our networks that it's extremely important to have representation in senior leadership, as these people are our role models. And if it's not there, that lack of representation could be disheartening. These are the positions of influence. These are the positions that are making business decisions. So unless we have that representation, there is a question of, are we actually taking this seriously? And so to solve this, we've implemented 3 solutions. The first, training programs to build up our diverse talent. So we have to promote and nurture our current diverse talent to give them the tools and the opportunities to be able to take on these senior roles. We saw in that video that we've placed a number of diverse employees on external leadership programs to ensure that we're building up the talent that we currently have, along with introducing spot coaching and therapy specifically for colleagues from ethnic minority backgrounds. We're also looking to introduce a mentoring scheme with external organizations to fill the gap that we have between middle and senior management. And so we can introduce a system where our internal staff have to commit to mentoring someone as well as having their own mentor, and we start to foster a learning culture. Within our learning and along with our learning and development team, we've designed and launched the Diversity and Inclusion Development Program, which consists of a trio of workshops designed to give employees the opportunity to learn more about diversity inclusion in a safe space, build their awareness, and give them some tools on how we can play their part in creating a more inclusive world at News UK. This is made up of exploring unconscious bias, building inclusive teams, and allyship. Since launching in October, we've seen 643 people attend these courses, which is amazing. We're also measuring impact weeks after they attend. So we've seen a 95.3% increase of awareness of unconscious bias from attendees who have attended the workshops. Our senior leadership teams are also going through unconscious bias, which is bespoke to them in terms of leadership. And then the allyship course enables employees to understand how they can help and the roles that they can play. It ensures that the teams around our diverse talent can support them effectively and also be educated simultaneously. Second, making changes to shift our culture. So to create an inclusive environment and ensure that News UK has the foundations to support our diverse talent working through the ranks. We've started doing this with our networks. We currently have 7 networks who are driving change, bringing situations forward, challenging policies, voicing concerns, and pushing agendas ahead. For example, in the height of the pandemic and homeschooling, with the feedback from News for Parents, which is our network for anyone with parental or caring responsibilities, we introduced 5 working hours a week for parents to support themselves through the pandemic, and were able to loan laptops for homeschooling parents from our tech teams. We've also guided each of these networks from day one through creating a framework in which we empower them to be able to do things like this. We have a network of network representatives that meet once a month to analyze current situations, language, and things that are coming up to come up with their solutions and be a part of the change. And that way we can get some real insight from our diverse employees. Using this network of networks, and I keep saying I need to come up with a new name for them, but we analyzed some of our learning and development leadership content to learn that some of the language was actually unappealing to parents and more specifically women. So when we unpicked the diversity data of the applicants, it showed that many women had actually looked at the course information, but only men had applied for the courses. So once the applications have closed and we'd made the adjustments suggested by our working group, we could see that that 39% of our applicants were in fact women. So we were able to change this with the direction of the networks and see some real change, and that hadn't been done before. We've more recently launched a women's steering committee, which is to advise the diversity team on business on how to drive change, how to challenge policies concerning women, but also raise and voice concerns or push gender equality agendas ahead. Our kickoff session saw 50 plus women from all departments, all locations, because we have businesses across the country, intersectionalities and stages of life come together in a workshop to outline what that group wants to achieve. And the first project that we're working on is how we're going to support women going through menopause and educate the business. And finally, empowering employees, which kind of comes on from that culture shift. But using the networks as an example, we're really starting to see change happen. To be able to improve from the inside and ensure that we don't create any animosity, we want to hear from all employees in order to understand the changes that they want to see, but also put into action plans of how we think this will work, whether that's through surveys, whether that's through focus groups or anecdotal feedback. Following the murder of George Floyd, our CEO, Rebecca Brooks, called for some honest feedback on how we can improve our approach to diversity and inclusivity. She had an open discussion with our internal cultural diversity network, A Voice for Black, Asian and Ethnic Minority Employees, to get direct feedback, which then shaped our strategy. We also saw this with International Women's Day, where the theme this year was Choose to Challenge, and we asked our employees to think about the changes that they would like to see News UK or the wider world make to become more equitable and help women in the future. Diversity is a whole business objective, and I think this is what we've really championed at News UK and why we've seen it be such a success in the last year. It cannot sit in a silo in HR or in the diversity team. Each one of our employees understands how we all have to go on this journey together, how it now affects them, and how each individual is part of the we, and the onus is on each one of us. And it works. We've seen some really big results. So we've asked about the perceptions of our approach to diversity in our annual engagement survey. Our engagement score this year was 65% and the diversity score was 64%. And that was the first time we ran that factor. But this year, agreement to the statement, this year, this company values diversity grew by 9% compared to our previous year. And that was only 3 months after launching our strategy, which is huge. We're reaching new audiences, we're winning commercial businesses, and we're listening to our people to make things better. So we're starting to empower our employees to create their own path to leadership. And that's only 1/3 of what we're doing. I also have 2 fantastic colleagues who are focused on the recruitment side and another who's focused on the product side. So I'm going to leave that on the screen, empowering employees to create their path to leadership, and open up to any questions.
Hello, thank you so much. Really insightful talk. One of my colleagues, Ruth, who's a co-host, Ruth Dance, actually used to be the former head of employee engagement at News UK, and she just wanted to say she wished she'd been able to start the path you've begun, and the work you've been doing is fantastic, and to say congratulations on an amazing talk. So she just wanted to pass that on to you through me right now. So that's from Ruth, and I echo those sentiments. You've obviously done a hell of a lot, and try to bring it all together. I think you've mentioned throughout the piece the culture shift, and I immediately noted when you were talking through the work you've been doing, is like the mindset shift and at the top. And have you seen that? Because obviously you can run training and tactics, but if you don't see that real mindset shift, a cultural shift from the leadership, it's hard for it to go anywhere. And I was wondering if you have seen that.
We're definitely seeing it, and as I mentioned, our senior leaders are going through their own unconscious biases, which is specifically tailored to leadership.
Yeah.
And actually, what we've seen from their attendance is a significant increase from the rest of the business. So actually, what the senior leaders are doing is then kind of mirrored with everyone else, and slowly, we're getting a real uptake on these programs. And I know that's just numbers and data, but obviously data is showing us that people are starting to make more of an effort and do more.
And it's such a unique environment in the sense that you have the cross section where you're sharing news to the world and reporting on such instances as George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter, International Women's Day, and any sort of social justice news. It must be hard then to make sure that you're reflecting that either internally or whether internally is driving the news agenda. It must be a really interesting place to be working right now.
But our editorial is separate to the business. We're not influencing the content on that, but we are, it's a journey of working together. And that's why we have the networks who can actually tell us what they want to see change, who can give us some real insight from those diverse perspectives, really. And then in terms of, we've seen some great coverage for Black History Month, which prior to maybe 2 years ago was not so much. We did amazing stuff from all of our all of our radio stations, all of our print titles for International Women's Day this year. And it was great because then we could actually link up everything of what was being done internally and what was being done externally, and also showcase that on both sides.
One thing that really jumped out at me was your network of networks, and I've tried to come up with another name, but sadly, I'll let you know if a light bulb goes off. It's interesting, the language didn't appeal so that more men were applying than women to those sessions. And when you reviewed it, does that made you go back and look at other parts of the business and training and the language you've used? Because that's a really interesting part, what you raised.
Yeah, definitely. And language is a huge key to all of it, because as I mentioned, and one of my colleagues is looking after the product side, is working on a style guide. But also, we do use that network of networks specifically for that reason. So we have people from different backgrounds, whether that's LGBTQ+, whether that's ethnicity, whether that's Gen Z, to make sure that, we're not missing a trick anywhere, especially internally, because we want to make sure that we are appealing to everyone.
Yeah. We've got a question come in, and sadly, I'm unable, don't know how to publish it to the screen, but I'll read it. It's from Kevin, and he said, you covered so much, and you might have missed it, but did you cover being a carer-friendly employer and how you're using working from home to include people who are housebound potentially?
Yes, so we have been open throughout the whole of the pandemic because obviously we're producing news every day, but everyone is still, you're doing whatever's in your comfort zone, and we are looking at accessibility right now. So actually, how can we make sure not just our buildings, for those who choose to be in the buildings, are accessible enough, but also with all of our internal, like our intranet, our emails, how can we make sure that we have the best setup? And we were also able to get, our home set up at the beginning of COVID to make sure we were in the best position possible to work from home.
Yeah, it's a challenge that everybody has to face who office based, and obviously you did all the work around. I think what you mentioned, loaning out laptops to children from your IT department who needed them for homeschooling. So that was awesome. Just seeing if there's any other questions. I suppose, how did you create your diversity board? That was one of the first things that sprung to my mind. You mentioned the diversity board, and I just wanted to know how you went about creating that, and was it both internal and external influences, or?
So that started with our Chief Commercial Officer, Dom Carter, who heads that up. And we have Bryony Hughes from our HR side, who's the HR lead on it. But from what they wanted to do was ensure that they had a representation from at least each department and at least one of the brands. And then also when we started with the networks, we ensured that we have an exec sponsor for each of those. So there is that representation for that voice as well on the board. So it originally came together, I guess, from people who were really interested in it, and it has evolved to make sure that there is that representation across.
Fantastic. And last question, what's next? What do you hope to achieve in the next 12 months? Amazing past 12 months in very tough circumstances, and what are you hoping to achieve?
Hopefully a lot, Matt. But I think some of the interesting stuff that we'll be seeing over the next 12 months will be on the recruitment side. So with those 100 internships, apprenticeships, there'll be some amazing stuff that's happening on that side. And if I would recommend anyone who wants to learn more to reach out or, see what my colleague Mark Hudson is up to on LinkedIn, because he heads that up. And I think that's going to be super exciting over the next year. Well,
you've heard it from me. We were invited back to tell us about those stories and how that recruitment drive went. And if any stories have come out of that, we'd love to hear them. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Just double checking any of the questions, and I will say goodbye to you. I wish you good luck in the Inspiring Workplace Awards on July the 14th, and hope I get to meet you in person at some stage soon, along with your team.
Crossed. And have a wonderful birthday tomorrow.
Thank you. Take care. Bye. All right. Bye-bye. Thank you so much. I've just seen that Kevin asked another question. I will forward that on to Alya for you, Kevin, and maybe connect on LinkedIn as well. Thank you for your engagement there. And thank you for everybody that's turned up again for the 5th week of the summer series. We're 2 weeks today. It finishes. We've got 21 sessions online already, over 10 hours of content. as equally as good as Alya's just then. So many topics are all available on inspiringworkplaces.com. And we'll be back again tomorrow. Ruth hosting another session. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.